Good morning. So my name is Yepeng. I'm currently a second-year PhD student in the CISPA Home Center for Information Security. It's my pleasure to give a presentation for our work, Loopy Hello Infinite Traffic Loop at the application layer. This is joint work by me and Anna, who was an intern in CISPA at that time, and also my supervisor, Professor Christine. So in the beginning of the presentation, I'll first give some background of what is an application layer traffic loop. Here is a 5-layer network module, and in the transport layer, we have UDP and TCP as the most commonly used stuff. And on top of them, there are lots of application layer protocols, for example, like DNS and NTP and so on. So the application layer traffic loop we're going to introduce will happen at this level. And one thing to note is that in this presentation, we will only focus on UDP-based applications. Here is an example of the application layer traffic loop. Assume that we have two servers, both running DNS, but using different software, and an off-pass attacker spoof the source IP of the vulnerable host and generate some malformed message and send to the first server. The first server finds it cannot parse the message, so it generates a command unknown error message. And because of the implementation of DNS is not consistent, so the second server doesn't really recognize the command unknown error message. So again, it will generate some not implemented error. And still, because of inconsistent implementation, so we can see that it will generate another, again, command unknown error message from the first server. And from this time on, the two servers will keep using our message to respond to each other, and an off-pass attacker could spawn such a traffic loop with the injected payloads. So such an application layer traffic loop can be put into different scenarios. For example, we could have a single target in the network, and we pair it with all the other vulnerable devices in the whole internet to overload the targets. And there is also the choice we could pair vulnerable devices in the target network together to try to overload the backbone of the network. Or we may also pair some devices in a target network with all other devices in the internet to try to overload the uplink. So the application layer traffic loop is already reported like around 20 years back. At that time, we have known that jargon and echo servers can form some kind of traffic loop. But after then, there is no systematic analysis over this problem in the raw network. So in our case, we focus on the identification of traffic loop in the raw internet. I will introduce our methodology now. So in the first step, we use the shadow server's daily reports to get a list of servers running a certain protocol. Here, for example, we get a list of OpenDNS resolvers. And then for each protocol we started, we prepared like around 20 and 30 hand-weighted probes. And we send all these probes to servers to try to trigger distinctive responses from these servers. And after then, we collect the responses from raw servers and try to cluster them according to semantic difference. For example, in the DNS case, we can say there are DNS error message and DNS response package, so they go to different categories. And after then, we perform a second round scanning. This time, we use the sampled responses from different clusters as the probes. And we send them again to these servers. And as you can see, this time, we also cluster the outputs of the server and collect the response. And with the above information, we could build a directed graph. For example, we know server 1, when it receives a tab A input, it will generate a tab B output. And for server 2, it will generate a tab A output when there is a tab B input. So combine these two together, we know there is a potential traffic loop because server 1, server 2 will try to respond to each other's responses. And this is just, we know there's a potential traffic loop, but we have no idea if it's going to continue this way. So we then need to perform a verification. Our verification is based on a proxy server. So the proxy serves as a person in the middle. It will first send the tab A trigger message to server 1, according to the graph we have built. And after then, the proxy will only passively delegate packets among the servers, server 1 and server 2. And once the proxy server has observed enough traffic among the two servers, we believe the traffic loop could happen, and it will continue this way. And then we could stop the proxy server to stop the verification. Now let's look at the results of the exam protocols we have done and some affected hosts. So overall, we have examined both legacy protocols and non-legacy protocols. For legacy protocols, there are echo and jargon and something so on. And for non-legacy protocols, we have examined things like TFTP, DNS, and NTP. So overall, this contributes to around 300K vulnerable devices, and there will be like billions potential loop pairs. So one thing to note is that in our submitted paper, we have not evaluated the QUIC, but after the paper is accepted, we have also examined the QUIC protocol. So it shows a quite high number of potentially affected hosts, and they are mostly affected by the stateless reset packet loop and our version negotiation packet loop. These two types of vulnerability were already recognized by the current RFC, but unfortunately, because some legacy implementation or some inconsistent implementation from the RFC, it's still possible to trigger a traffic loop causing like 300 or 400 packets loops among servers. In our evaluation, we have also examined cross-protocol traffic loop. This happens among servers running two different protocols. And it could be interesting because a server running a certain protocol is not recognizing other specification of other protocols. And there could be more chance of a protocol traffic loop. And in here, we will use DNS and TFTP as an example. So as you can see in the header here, the DNS header uses the first two bytes as the identification fields. And the DNS server will always copy the identification from a DNS request. And this actually makes some difference because the same bytes range is used for other purposes in other protocols. For example, in TFTP, the same bytes range is the operation codes. So that means a DNS message could be received by a DNS server, and the DNS server could copy the same operation codes of the TFTP server and generate some responses that might pass the semantic check of a TFTP server. So given this information, we found that it's indeed possible to trigger a traffic loop among a DNS server and a TFTP server. And now we could look at some mitigations. So there are both choices for administrators or developers. For administrator, you could try to employ quality of service. For example, some traffics are not that important, like some traffic from legacy protocols. You could deprioritize them when there is congestion. And another choice is to employ, for example, source port validation. So because the traffic loop happens among two servers running a certain protocol, so they will keep using their well-known port number to respond to each other. And as if you have a firewall, if you have some kind of packet filtering, you could just drop this traffic. In terms of developers, it might be a good idea to suppress some error message. For example, if the incoming package is not parsable or you cannot have any semantic meaning of that package, you could just drop them silently without sending any response. Another choice maybe is rate limiting. For example, especially our evaluation, we found that a lot of traffic loop is caused by error message, so it's possible to apply some rate limiting over the error message. To summarize, in this work, we have provided a methodology to identify and verify the application layer traffic loops in raw network, and we examined several protocols and identified hundreds of thousands of affected hosts. So in parallel to our work, we have also contacted these affected vendors and vulnerable devices and got some feedbacks. And based on this, we built out a adversary, and you could find it in the link above. So we would thank all the community contribution for helping us identify these vulnerabilities and providing these constructive feedbacks. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward for your questions.